let's get going. Happy to have a buddy of mine from Clackamas Fire on with us today. We're talking about cardiovascular health for firefighters. And what I think what's unique about this experience is my friend Dave Palmer from Clackamas Fire actually had an MI while on duty back when he was working with Clackamas Fire. So I'd love to introduce Dave, let him tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll get right into his experience with that MI, what that looked like post-recovery, and then returning back to work. So Dave, it's really great to see you, man.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Been a long time.
Yeah, it has. Tell me about how'd you end up in the fire service, and then walk us through. You retired a couple years ago. In a couple minutes, just surmise that for us.
Okay. Yeah, I I took a little different path, I think, than most guys I know, people I know in the fire service. I really had no interest in it at all. I didn't know anything about it until I went in the military. Started doing mandatory fire training, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. I kind of enjoy this. And then in my last 3 years in the military, I was stationed. I was in the Navy, and so, but my last 3 years, I was stationed on land, and I started volunteering at a local department. Quickly found that I really did like that, and that's really what I wanted to do when I grew up. So when I got out, I went back into the Air Guard in Portland, so I could go through the Air Force's Fire Academy, which is great. And that just started me down the path. Started working for the airport fire department, did that for 10 years, and then went over to Clackamas on a lateral for the next 15. And that is basically how I started down this path. And it was a great career. I really did love it.
Yeah, and then we met during our time at Clackamas, and then you retired. Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah, awesome.
Retirement doesn't suck, by the way. I recommend it to everybody out there.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. So you had an MI on duty.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Like, when was that? What were the circumstances leading up to it? Tell me just a little bit about that.
So that was in October of 2016. And it was, the whole thing was kind of interesting. I didn't have any symptoms driving to work. And I was literally getting all the rig check, getting all my gear out, and I started feeling achy, just like I was coming down with a cold or flu. And at the time when I was thinking about it, I thought about the day before. I do volunteer work in the community. And the day before, we were at this elementary school doing site testing for the kids. And I'm looking around with it and talking to the guy next to me. And I'm like, all of these little germ factories, half of them are sick. And and that's what I thought when I was, getting all my gear on the rig, getting it ready, doing my daily stuff. I'm like, God dang it, they got me sick. And it just kind of started progressing from there. I didn't have, until the very end, I did not have a typical MI heart attack presentation. And that threw me off, I think. And so as time kept going, I was just achy. Typically they talk about crushing chest pain, pressure, and radiating pain down, your left arm. Standard, typical guy presentation. I didn't have that at all. I literally felt like I was coming down with the flu, just kind of achy all over. Had a headache, and then I got heartburn. It wasn't a chest pain per se. If you've ever had heartburn, that is literally what it felt like. And I get heartburn all the time because I drink so much coffee. And so I'm like, okay, great. Now I got heartburn and I'm coming down with cold. I'm gonna give it, like we all do. Let me just give this a little bit, and maybe I'll feel a little bit better. took the standard, M&M, ibuprofen, Motrin combo, and it wasn't getting any better. I wasn't getting nauseous yet. I wasn't sweaty yet. It really was, yeah, I'm just sick. Okay. And then it just kept getting a little bit more. And I told the crew, I was just a company officer at the time, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm actually not feeling real great. I'm going to give it a little bit here. But I may go home sick. And this whole time, and I would recommend this to everybody out there, I follow firefighter close calls. Lots of great stuff to learn from what they present on there. And it just so happened that there had been several stories on there of guys telling their crew that they had not been feeling well, went and laid down, and then, of course, didn't wake up. That happened a couple times. And then right around there also, Clackamas is near Portland. Portland had a couple MIs, and they also talked about how they were feeling sick. And so as, half hour went by, an hour went by, this started popping up in my head. And then again, like most of us, it's like, no, that can't be right. I wasn't in great shape, but I wasn't in bad shape. I wasn't presenting like, we're all taught. In fact, later my crew would give me crap for months about presenting like a female, and standard firehouse humor, which is fair, I guess. At any rate, that would cross my mind, and it wasn't until I did finally get nauseous, and I'm like, I am really getting sick here. I am going to go home, and I went and told the guys that. But for whatever reason, forgive the dogs barking if you can hear them. For whatever reason, when I went into the kitchen, and crew's ready, it was still morning, and we were getting ready for our day. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go home, but why don't we just real quick do a 12 lead? And I asked for that. That kind of got their attention, and they walked out, and they went and grabbed the gear and hooked me up. And when I saw the tracing, I'm a basic, but at this point I had been around in the service quite a while. I knew what I was looking at, and my literal thought, I saw the tracing, and all I said to myself, and forgive me for this, but all I said to myself was, fuck.
Yeah.
Because I knew what that was. I've seen that multiple times, many times. And I just had to look to confirm what I knew at the guys' faces. And it was like, yep, okay. And I looked to one of them, and I'm like, all right, well, let's do this. The primary lead medic at the time, he started working with me. The other guy, he went over to the phone to call the BC, and then call dispatch, start a medic our way. And this station had a 4-person crew. The other guy who hadn't been in there during this, he walked in. I looked at him and I'm like, hey, you need to go get the med kit. I'm having an MI. And he's, again, the firehouse, he can't necessarily trust what anybody says. He started laughing, and the other guys are like, no, actually go get the med kit. This is real. Saw his face change. Yeah. And then started doing the whole treatment, doing everything. It was, Anterior is what it showed as. It was a full blown STEMI. Um, Going through that, and then for the guy going through it, me, all I can say is a lot of it was pretty surreal. You're used to being the one giving the treatments. You're used to being the one who directs things as a company officer, et cetera. When those tables turn, it is just very surreal. We're still joking with each other the whole time, and I was trying to keep it as light as I could because I did recognize the gravity of it. But things like, yeah, gotta get an IV, Dave. I'm going to start with a 16, 12 maybe, just to give me crap. But yeah, we were going through that. Listening to dispatch the ambulance that is coming for you was just weird. Hearing the BC come up and go en route, it's just weird. Let's see. It was one of the guys was like, "Hey, you should probably call your wife." And I'm like, no, let's just see what's going on. And the way it presented, and you guys will see the trace. It was pretty serious. And so they made me call my wife. That'll be difficult to talk about, but having that conversation, I tried to downplay it as much as I could with her. And then one of the guys, because she was asking if she should start heading to the hospital. And I'm like, well, let's just see what happens and I'll probably be fine. And one of the other guys took the phone. He's like, no, actually, this is pretty serious. You should head that way.
Yeah.
So the ambulance finally got there, loaded me up. It's always a joke with one guy, the main lead medic. He's the one we always joke about. He makes everybody walk to the gurney, and he made me walk to the gurney, and he made me carry the 12 lead monitor. About that time, the BC showed up, and just I don't even remember what he said, but let's get you going. And again, the surrealness of all of us has been in the back of the ambulance, giving treatment, treating people, going code to the hospital. When you're the one laying in the gurney, going code 3 to the hospital, I just promise you that's weird. It's just weird. So went to the local cath lab. They had already spun that up. They were waiting for me when I got there. The doctor was funny. They got me. There was a whole team. They're all rushing around, getting things ready, strip me down. They were going to go through the femoral, which I wasn't really expecting, but they had all that going while they were prepping. The doc was talking about my STEMI and how it was presenting. And he's like, and by the way, you are having a heart attack. And I'm like, I know. Let's do this. Let's go. Transferred me off the gurney I was on, took me into the cath lab. God, the table's cold, by the way. They have heated blankets, so if you hopefully never have to deal with this, but that table is ice cold. Did the scan, and I was having my STEMI was a left anterior descending. So that, as we all also should know, is termed the widowmaker. I think well, no, I know. I was very fortunate as to where the blockage was. It was 100% blockage, but it was halfway down. I think if that had been higher up that artery, I would have had a much worse day and a much worse outcome. So did that, and then they went right in through the femoral, um, did the balloon, cleared it, and again, I hope nobody experiences this, but if you do, you will know instantly when they clear that clot. It was immediate. And then they put in a stent, and honestly, I was in ICU for about a day after that, and I went home within probably 36 hours.
Wow. So you were home after a stay in the ICU
Yeah,
for a short period of time, and then within 36 hours of having it, you were home.
yeah, yeah,
So, Dave, what was the time frame from the time you got on duty at that time? We shift changed at 7:30.
yeah.
Doing rig check, you're starting to kind of just feel some of these symptoms. From the time you started feeling that to the time you walked in and told the crew like, "Hey, I need a 12 lead." What was that? Was that 2 hours?
No, it wasn't even that long. Because I always get to work early, so I was starting everything by seven, by probably 7:10, 7:15. That's when I started feeling sick, and all the achiness I talked about. Um, and within an hour of that, I would say I was convinced I was going to go home, and that's when I asked for the 12 week, just in case.
Okay. Yeah,
So it was within an hour.
yeah, that's a pretty
Onset.
tight timeline. And, just to think that it was just that solo decision to ask for the 12 lead before you packed your stuff and went home
Yeah.
is pretty incredible.
Well, and so Clackamas over there, by this point, I had moved and I still live in Central Oregon. I have no question in my mind, especially knowing the type of heart attack it was. If I had not asked for that, I would have probably coded out on the mountain somewhere on my way home.
Hmm. Yep.
Pretty sure.
Yep. Yeah. No, that you're absolutely right. I mean, just given the timeline of everything. And so within that, from the time you started with the symptoms of sickness, atypical,
Yeah.
to the time you ended up on the cath lab table, did you ever experience pain or any traditional symptoms?
No.
None.
No, I will say my arms did end up getting painful,
Okay.
but they were both arms. It was bilateral. So again, it wasn't a standard what you'd normally think of as like, crap, my left arm is really achy. No, it was both arms. Um, and I had suffered at the time from on and off carpal tunnel. And so every single thing that I had a valid, in my mind, reason that it was happening, right? I was feeling achy because the kids were all sick and they got me sick. I have heartburn. I always get heartburn because I drink so much damn coffee. My arms, and it was basically from the elbows down. That's what was achy, but I have carpal tunnel in my hands. So I literally could write off and excuse every single reason.
Yeah. You could have easily justified every symptom you had by
Yeah,
just experiencing your life. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just weird. I really do believe if I hadn't followed, firefighterclosecalls.com, and Portland hadn't had a couple cardiac events in the prior months, I probably would have just gone home
Yep.
or been the guy that said, "Hey guys, I'm really not feeling well. I'm going to go lay down in my bunk, and just rest a little bit, see if this goes away." Fortunately, flying under that one shining star, I did not do any of that.
Yeah. Pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Pretty lucky. Um, So you came back to full duty. I mean, it was amazing to hear that you were in and out within 36 hours from the
Yeah.
time of onset of symptoms to going home 36 hours. It's really short. And you made it back to full duty, right?
Yep.
What was the timeline like for that? And what did it look like? Was there rehab? Was there PT? I mean, how did that
It
recovery
was
go?
miserable because all you want to do is get back to work.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it was 6 weeks. It was the minimum. One of the things that helped, and I just I can't say this enough. We all are taught that time equals damage, right? Whether it's heart, whether it's stroke, whether whatever, time is damage. So it really wasn't a long time when you think about my onset of my symptoms to being in the cath lab. I was in the cath lab probably, well, no later than 9, I think. Um, the damage to my heart was minuscule. I don't remember. They kind of judge that by the troponin levels.
Okay.
And I had very minimal levels of the troponin in my system. So that helped me. The shortness of time helped me. It prevented any significant damage. Throughout this entire thing, I had to see three different cardiologists, right? The one at the cath lab, the safe workman's comp cardiologist, and then the cardiologist I now have that I just have to see once a year now. And they all three basically told me that, I was pretty lucky in a lot of ways, but the damage to my heart was minimal. And so because of that, I was able to you have to go through the whole the whole stress test again. Anybody who's done the Bruce protocol knows how good a time that is.
Mm-hmm.
I started working out again. My wife was not happy about that. And I did start working out right away, and I did start returning to normal life functions.
Yeah.
For no other reason than, F it. I'm not dead yet, and I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. And that seems pretty common. We interviewed a firefighter not long ago that had cancer, workplace cancer. And within a couple weeks of his treatment, he was up on his roof cleaning his gutters. I think that's just kind of the general mindset of folks we all kind of work around, that's the
Yeah,
mentality. But, it's got to be on the right pace, right? With your doctor, give your body time to recover and all those
yeah,
things.
yeah.
Um, let's talk about real quick risk factors. Did you have any, Dave, that looking back, you're like, wow, here was some risk factors that I saw this coming? Because if I were to look at you at the time when I heard that you had the MI, I was shocked. I was like, no way. I wouldn't have looked at you and said, you look as though you're going to have one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, not really. Yes, but not really, right? I used to be a smoker, and I had smoked cigarettes for like 18 years. I had quit though back in 2004, so it had been 12 years. All of the studies and literature will tell you that within 5 years of quitting smoking, your lungs and general physiology should be back to normal. So, did that play a factor? Maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a family history at all of this. Um, to be completely honest, I was a little bit on the heavy side for me. I wasn't anywhere near the obese category. Certainly not. Our wellness did a really good job of tracking our weight and telling you what category you are close to. So I was just a little above average for my height and body structure, if you will. So for me, at just 110, just a little under, smaller structure. I was 190, 195. So not bad. And of course, like most of us, I would tell you that, yeah, most of that, of course, would have been muscle, but probably not. But it wasn't bad. There wasn't any glaring risk factor. What struck me, and again, all three cardiologists told me the same thing, which was every day, every single person blows plaque. And plaque is what, sometimes, not always, when plaque blows, that's what causes the heart attack. But every day, every single person blows plaque of some sort. Normally, 98% of the time, it's tiny pieces and it just gets reabsorbed. For whatever reason, that day for me, it was a bigger piece and it obviously didn't get reabsorbed. So each one told me that exact same thing. And it was just like, well, you lost the lottery on that part, but you certainly won it with everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, looking at the outcome and the potential of what could have happened,
yeah,
would have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
Real quick, as you kind of look back over your career, is there anything that you would have, if you could tell a 20-year-old new firefighter Dave about cardiac, and MI and the risk factors and all those things, is there anything like looking back on this that you would have changed? Or, I mean, not necessarily given your limited risk factors, like where are you at on that?
If God, hindsight, right? We would change all kinds of stuff, right? I would not allow myself to ease up on some of the exercise routines I've done. All of us, this job, and I was talking before we started here, I told Brandon, this job, especially being on the line, is a young person's job. It is not an old person's job, and I am not young anymore. To maintain, and especially to the newer people, you have to maintain that level of health as long as you can. It gets really easy once you get into a department, you're hired, you're working, to slack off because you've made it now. Super easy to do. Don't do it. Don't let the lack of sleep, because that is in and of itself, for the fire service, in my opinion, that is one of the biggest detriments to our health. Don't let it stop you from maintaining your health. The department's not going to maintain your health for you. The best you can hope for is that they will give you time to work out and that they will monitor you annually. Your health is all on you. Don't let it go. Do not. And it is all on you.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And you're right. Hindsight is always, it's perfectly clear now that you look back. Yeah. One question that came to mind was, as you went through this, and you can only imagine the impact to you. And I think you mentioned it a couple of times, just feeling surreal when you're sitting there hooked to a 12 lead, you see it on the monitor pop up. You're like, okay. And then you're laying on the gurney, code 3 to the hospital. You've done it 100 times before, but you've always been the care provider. So obviously big impacts to you and your wife. Do you know what was the impact to your crew? Did you guys ever follow up on that?
Impact to my what? I'm sorry?
Your crew.
Like my crew.
The 3 others that were there with you that day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they all got medals.
Yeah.
So, I've never had a really in-depth study to talk with them to see if that has ever affected how they now approach their brothers and sisters around them. again, hindsight 2020, I should have asked that. Um, I know for a while, just as far as did it shake them a little bit? Yes, absolutely it does. And it did. But, you press on, just like all of us, you press on. That's what we do. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but anytime you have a brother or sister get hurt at all or are hurting at all for whatever reason, whether that's mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever, yeah, you see it, you notice it, and it does affect you. So I don't think that it could not have affected them, um, even assuming they did like me.
Yeah.
Which,
And that's a pretty big assumption, actually.
sure.
Um, yeah, and I think you're right. I think the crew probably felt an impact, recognized or not. And then organizationally, I remember when that happened. Again, I mentioned it earlier. We were shocked that it happened to you, and I think just the ripple effect of that creeping through an organization was pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah.
So I think then the conversation heightened. Well, shoot, if it could happen to Dave, I mean, any one of us, right? Um, so we kind of all learned at your expense, but I guess that's maybe a little bit of the silver lining. Dave, this is awesome. Thanks for taking the time. I know sometimes these can be hard to talk about, but I think it's really important to share. So thanks for doing that, and always good connecting. If guys have questions about the process or anything in between, you open to text or phone calls?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put your contact info in the newsletter, and then always a good resource. It's nice to know somebody who's gone through it. But yeah, thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely happy to do it. Hope it helps somebody.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.